Please welcome your last veteran for this evening, Mr. Lonnie Robinson. Lonnie on his little scooter and his veteran American flag waving, and I pulled over and stopped traffic. I was like, I need to talk to you. Do you have a story for me? And he said he did. So welcome again, Lonnie Robinson.
She said I'm a veteran, and I am. And there's nothing that I can think of that I'm any more proud of. People say, why did you put your time in the Navy? Well, I was representing this country. And what I do for this country nowhere replaces what this country has done for me. And I've talked to other veterans over the VA clinic and different places. And to us, it was a thing of honor to be accepted to go into the United States military. A lot of guys think it's an obligation that they're expected to do after high school, to go and pick out a service and get in there. But to most of us, it was something we wanted to do because we were proud of where we were from, the good old United States of America. I'm from Oklahoma, and let me say this, you folks are here tonight, and I'm glad that you showed up, except I'm one of the speakers. I'd say I was glad to see you, except I'm one of the speakers, and I'm nervous as a long-tailed cat in a Marine Bull rocking chair. So, if you'll take patience with me, I'll be all right.
Of course.
The day that I just decided to join the Navy was the day that I was supposed to go back and re-enroll with my junior year at Central High School in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I went down, did all the paperwork and everything that they require of you while you're enrolling, and finally they got through with me and decided I could leave. And all day long I felt out of place. I felt like I was on the wrong path. Out of sync, out of touch with reality. And I couldn't understand why, because I hadn't been that way before. But on the way home, I had to walk through part of downtown Oklahoma City, and when I did, I came by the U.S. Navy recruiting office. And I stood and looked in that window at the posters and the guys signing up and everything, and then suddenly I realized all day I'd been out of place, because this was where I was supposed to be. I went in and took their tests. They gave me an IQ test and some other things. I forget, that's been 20, 30 years ago. Anyway, I sat around waiting impatiently for somebody to come out and tell me if I was accepted or not. And finally they came out and they said that I'd been accepted and my score was in the top 1/3 for that year. And I was so proud. Man, I was going to be in the Navy. The dream finally come true. I walked out of the office and then it dawned on me. This was the easy part. Going home and convincing my mother was going to be the hard part. I went home and I waited for the right chance, and I caught her going out to the clothesline to bring in some clothes she'd washed that day. And I hit her up with it, and she looked at me and studied a while, and she said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, yes, I've thought about it for a long time. And I said, today, I didn't feel right until I went down there and signed all the paperwork, and I said, now I feel good. So she decided to sign up for me. So I took the paperwork down, and they told me I'd have to be out at the airport the next day at, they called it 0700 hours. I was fresh out of school. I didn't know what 0700 was, but somebody told me, and I got out there. We got on a plane going to San Diego, California, the big Navy training center out there. And this airplane was an old humpback, three-tailed, four-engine Constellation. You remember what I'm talking about? Back then, they're out of place now. You know, I don't think you can see them unless they're in museums somewhere. But back then, flying on a Constellation was like flying on a 747 now. Or I thought until I got on that airplane after it got in the air and I decided to go to the bathroom and that thing got to move like this. I almost fell a couple times and I was scared because I didn't want to fall on my ass right there in front of the whole plane. And that's what was fixing to happen. And anyway, that plane finally leveled out and we made it to San Diego. They picked us up and took us out there and we spent the night in the barracks. They came around the next morning, woke us up, told us we had to take showers and eat breakfast, and then they moved us over to this other line. We went through and got an issue of uniforms. I had both arms full of stuff. Had a big pea coat and a duffel bag. The funny thing about it is they wouldn't let me sit down and stuff all this stuff in that duffel bag. I thought that'd be the easy way to handle it. But then we started getting rumors from some of the guys who had been in a while, and they told us that the very worst thing you could do was get a destroyer. Is that how much time I've got left? To get a destroyer. And I worried about that the whole time. Anyway, I did wind up with a destroyer. She says I doesn't have much time left, so I'm going to make this quick.
10 minutes, you're fine.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you, I'm sorry. Well, when I got this, my real orders, it was USS Floyd B. Parks, DD-884. That's DD means, in Navy means destroyer. She was named after Marine Corps fighter pilot who was head of the fighter squadron in Midway at the big battle of Midway. They flew out and met the incoming Japanese and they were all wiped out to a man. One guy came back and his plane, when it landed, it touched the ground, it just completely fell apart. He was shot up so much that they don't know how he made it back to base. There's a joke going around about that ship I was on that said it was built by women and named after a jarhead. No way this ship would ever be worth a darn thing. But it turned out later that ship turned out to be one of the best duty stations I could have hoped for. And while we were on there, we got orders to go to Shanghai, Korea. We went over there, we picked up, I think, 4 or 5 Caucasian males with no European accents, so I knew they had to be Americans. And there was about that many Republic of Korean officers. And I took it to, they were officers because they went, after they come aboard, they went straight to officers' country, and the only people that go to officers' country is officers. Enlisted personnel, you keep your butt out of there. And you want some big trouble, let the officer find you up there. We put these guys in their racks, had all their ammo and weapons and everything in a big duffel bag. We got them on one of our lifeboats. We'd come over the PA system to get the landing party ready to go. We got these guys all loaded up, and then we got a signal to put them ashore. They left. We didn't see them again. And I was the bow gunner on this lifeboat. I had a 30 caliber air-cooled machine gun. And my orders were to hold a waist-high cover fire. Our men would all be down below that. And so I did, except I got to thinking, you know, when this shooting starts, I'm going to be the one closest to everything. I'm up here on the front of this boat, you know. Well, we did that about 3 or 4 times, and I never did know what the deal was. They wouldn't tell us what we were up to until finally one day we were at sea, and I was sitting there with a young ensign named Green. And I asked him about it, and he said, Lonnie, you don't know who those guys were? And I said, no, I thought they were some of our military. He said, no, those were CIA advisors. We took them in and put them ashore, and they met with the South Vietnamese, and they went over and taught them new military techniques. That was before we even had a foot soldier on the ground over there. They were getting them ready to do something. We went from Shanghai, Korea to Midway. That's where the guy that our ship was named after, that's where his base was at Midway. And that place is, it doesn't look that big from the ground. And when you actually get on the ground, you see that it's actually about this big. That's not bad. I flew over one time in an airplane, and you could see dozens of sunk ships where they'd sunk them during World War II. And there was a concrete barge. People talk about how industrious the Japanese are. They made barges that they pull behind big ships, and they would load these things down with ammo, food, medical supplies, radios, whatever, and these were made out of concrete. And they towed them behind ships. And this one got over there and it cracked and it started leaking, and they abandoned ship and left it sitting out there. But I tell you how inventive some people are. After we left there, I forgot where I was at. Oh, we went back into Shanghai, Korea, and dropped some guys off, and then we went to Subic Bay, Philippines, and my discharge orders came in. I was quarterdeck watch, and a courier came aboard, and he had a stack of manila envelopes. The only place you see stacks of envelopes like that is in the military. And when I handed these to the officer of the deck, I noticed that the top one had my name on it. Come find out it was my orders for discharge. They took me by a shuttle bus from Subic Bay, Philippines to Clark Air Force Base, and they put me on a match flight, the Military Air Transport Service. And they flew me from there to Pearl Harbor, and then we refueled, and they flew on into San Francisco. I went to Travis Air Force Base. And from there, they took me over to the coldest place in the world, out of Treasure Island in San Francisco Harbor. There's nights that I went to sleep there, I had my complete uniform on, everything I owned. That was cold out there. I didn't stay there very long. Finally, I did get my discharge, and I'd kind of lost my enthusiasm for the Navy. I got enthused over this. I took the enthusiasm I had for the Navy and I put it on this little blonde. She had the prettiest hair I guess I ever saw. We were together 8 years and had 3 kids. And I like to say that right now that one of my all-time favorite things to do for a hobby is build large models of American gunboats. The USS Missouri, I built 3 of them. I've got a picture of it in my pocket. If anybody wants to look at it, come around, I'll give it to you. Thank you very much. She wanted me to do a couple poems I wrote years after I got out of the Navy. Like I said, we traveled everywhere in the Navy, and I followed suit after I got out. I did a lot of hitchhiking. Went from this place to the next. And one day I was sitting in a bar in Oklahoma City, and this poem started sliding out the end of this pencil. And it didn't seem like I was going to be able to write fast enough to put that on paper. But it was called Highway's My Home. It's called What Makes a Man Do Things That to Others Seem So Dumb? Like standing beside this highway, sticking out my thumb. It was the ways of a cheating woman that caused this soul to stray. That's why you see me now, thumbing beside this old highway. I've been around the Bay of Frisco, I've walked the streets of New Orleans. I've seen both big oceans blue and I've crossed countless mountains green. And I still can't bear to return to the place I once called home. The only thing left to do now is just stick out that thumb and roam. And I know what you nice folks think when you see me here cold and damp. Look at there, Woody Johnny. There's another one of those useless highway tramps. We talked about different things a lot, and I got in some conversations with guys from Vietnam, and they told me one of the most important things in their day was mail call. If you've been in the service, you know what I'm talking about. That's when you get in touch with the people that you left behind, or they get in touch with you. And I wrote this one, I can't remember what led into it, and I can't remember the first two verses, but one of them told about a guy whose wife wrote and told him about a new son that he just had, and he hadn't seen it yet. Another guy, his mother wrote and told him about surgery that his dad had had. It was life-threatening, but they thought he was going to be okay. Rickett's letters stopped coming from the girl he left behind. And one morning on patrol, he suddenly lost his mind. We were searching through the jungle for an enemy ammo dump, and I noticed as we advanced how Rickett's shoulders seemed to slump. The look on his face was scary like nothing I'd seen before, and it seemed so odd in contrast to the smile he always wore. And I guess the thought of the girl at home must have given him strength anew, until that enemy machine gun slowly started chopping him in two. I watched as he felt his hand was reaching out, and with his last dying words, he said, "Lonnie, make sure she finds out." Well, in camp the following day, we sat up when we heard the mail truck, and I can't help but feel inside that maybe it was just a twist of luck. The first 9 letters that came were addressed in a dead man's name, P.S. Albert Ricketts.